I did something kind of masochistic yesterday. I downloaded 3 corporate podcasts from 3 completely different industries and listened to the first 5 minutes of each. Just first 5 minutes. One from a healthcare company, a fintech startup, a B2B software as a service platform. Different markets, different audiences, completely different goals. And all 3 started with the exact same 30 seconds. Upbeat music. Host introduction with credentials. Oh, let's meet you. Or where are you from? Or let's, guest introduction with credentials. And then just like clockwork, the question. So tell me how you got started in this field. Now look, I'm not here to trash these shows. The hosts are smart, undoubtedly. The guests are accomplished. The content, once you get past those first few minutes, actually valuable. But here's what keeps me up at night. If I played you those 3 intros back to back with the industry terms removed, you couldn't tell them apart. And that's not a production problem. That's a story problem. Now let me tell you how this usually goes. Someone in marketing gets tapped to launch a podcast for the company. Maybe that person is you. Maybe it was you 6 months ago. So you do what any smart person does. You do your research, you ask a few questions, you find out who can, produce the podcast, get clean film. You listen to successful podcasts so you can sample. You Google how to start a podcast. You download templates, you make a list of equipment, you hire teams that probably will give you crispy looking film. And every article, every guide, every expert that we see in this field is doing the exact same thing. Get good audio quality, write a compelling intro, introduce yourself and build credibility, make your guest comfortable, ask open-ended questions. So you do all of that. You nail the technical stuff. You've got the format down. Correct guy. You launch the show. You're ready. And then nothing. Not bad feedback. Just silence. A few listens from your team, maybe your mom, some pity downloads from the LinkedIn post that you shared. Maybe the Instagram video just gains momentum, but no momentum, no word of mouth, no one saying, oh, you have to check this podcast out without you triggering it. And here's the part that makes it worse. You followed all the rules. You did everything they told you to do. You checked every box. But the show still sounds like background noise. At this point, you want to cry. Because you're like, I did everything right. I've seen this happen 17 times. Not 17 shows. 17 companies that launched a podcast, followed the playbook perfectly, and then quietly stopped producing episodes after season 1. You know what they all had in common? They asked, what do successful podcasts do? Instead of, what does my story need? Because here's the thing nobody tells you. Those templates, those formats everyone follows, those ChatGPT results, they're not designed to make your podcast great. They are designed to make your podcast safe. And safe, my friends, is the enemy of memorable. Now let me show you what I mean. Most corporate podcasts follow what I call the professional handshake format. You've heard it before, haven't you? You probably used it. Music fades in, host welcomes you to the show, the host tells you who they are and why they are qualified, the guest gets introduced with their impressive bio, then the conversation starts with background and context. It's the podcast equivalent of a firm handshake and a business card. Nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with it. Totally competent. But here's what it doesn't do. It does not make me curious. It doesn't create tension. It does not make me feel like I'm about to hear something I can't hear anywhere else. It just sounds like work. Now let me play you something different. There's this show called Rework from the company 37 Signals. It's an interview show about business, but they don't start with intros and pleasantries. They start with the most provocative thing that the guest said during the interview. No context, no warm-up. They just drop you straight into the tension. And then they say, I'm going to tell you how we got here. You see what they did? They are still doing an interview. They are still introducing themselves and the guests. But they reversed the structure. They showed you the destination first. Then they made you want to know how to get there. Same content, different structure, completely different feeling. And here's why that matters. The format they chose isn't random. It's not just trying to be different. Their show is about challenging conventional business wisdom, about questioning the way we've always done things. So their format does that too. It's theirs, not everyone else's. It challenges the convention of how podcasts start. And that's the principle. Format follows function. Your podcast format should serve your story, not the other way around. Most people get this backwards. They pick a format first, usually the one they've heard the most, usually the one they've bandied around and they've seen others use, and then they try to squeeze their story into it. But the shows that actually break through, they build the formats around the story they are trying to tell. Okay, so how do you actually apply this in real life? Because I can already hear what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, oh, okay, that's great for a company like 37 Signals. But we're in the investment industry now. We can't just throw out the rule book. Fair enough. Calm down. We're getting there. But here's what you can do for your company, for your brand. Okay? First, I need you to figure out what kind of story you're actually telling. Like really, not what kind of podcast you want to make. What kind of story? Are you teaching people how to do something? Then start with the problem they are facing right now. Make it visceral. Make them feel it and then promise the solution. Are you challenging the way people think about something? Then start with the conventional wisdom. Say it out loud. Then say the thing that everyone else is thinking, but nobody else is saying. Are you telling transformation stories? Start at the moment everything changed. Not the background, not the credentials, the crisis point. Here's a real example. Last year, I worked with a consulting firm. They wanted to launch a podcast that shares business insights across various fields. Their first draft had a standard format. Intro music, host credentials, guest bio, and then tell us about your journey. But when we actually talked about what they were trying to do, it wasn't just share business stories. It was show businesses or entrepreneurs what they are missing when they focus on metrics instead of humans. So we rebuilt the whole thing. Now they start each episode with a moment, a specific scene from the CEO's experience. Something visceral and true. Something, a nugget that every entrepreneur wants to learn and probably nobody else tells them, but they only get in the boardrooms. 30 seconds in, you're not listening to a podcast, you're in the boardroom yourself. You're feeling what that person felt. Then they pull back and introduce context. Same interviews, same guests, same information, but now it serves the story they're actually trying to tell. And the results? Their viewership and listenership in the first 3 months beats their entire year one goal. And it keeps getting better. Not because the production got better, not because they promoted it harder. It's not about how fine it looks, how effective, because it finally sounded like what it actually was. So here is what I want you to do. Pull up your last 3 episodes, listen to the first 90 seconds of each, and then ask yourself 3 questions. 1. If someone heard this or watched this with 0 context, will they know what kind of story this is? 2. Does this opening give away the most interesting part, or does it make me desperate to hear the most interesting part? 3. Am I doing this because it serves my story or because it's what I've seen other people do? Be honest on that third one. It is important. Most people fail it. I failed it on my first few podcasts. I followed the template because I thought, well, that's what you're supposed to do. That's what I saw online. That's what looks good. Seems like it. And the show was fine. It was competent. It was professional. Completely forgettable, my friends. It wasn't until I stopped asking, what do professional podcasts do? And started asking, what does this specific story need, that everything changed. That's when it got interesting. I know this is harder than just following a template. Templates are seductive. They remove uncertainty. They give you a roadmap. It's like hand-holding you down a road that you've never walked before. And when you're staring at a blank document trying to figure out how to structure your show, that's incredibly appealing. It's easy, right? But here's what I've learned after doing this for over 20 years. The shows that people actually remember, the ones that create movement instead of just content, they're never the ones that played it safe. They are the ones that built something specific for their specific story. Think Diary of a CEO. And yeah, that's riskier. It requires more thinking, more iteration, sometimes more team, more deep learning. But you know what's actually risky? Spending 6 months producing a podcast that sounds exactly like 40 other podcasts in your space. Because at that point, you're not competing on quality, you're competing on distribution, on budgets, on who can promote harder, or who can hire a better team, who can pay the big bucks. And unless you're a massive brand with unlimited resources, that's a game you're going to lose. But when your format actually serves your story, when someone hears the first 60 seconds and thinks, I've never heard anything like this before. It's nice, oh. Now you've got a chance. Now you're not just another podcast. You are the podcast that finally said the thing everyone else was dancing around. And that's how you build an audience that actually cares. That's how you find your community. Now here's your homework. Go listen to the first 60 seconds of your last episode. Now ask yourself, does this sound like a podcast, or does this sound like the most interesting conversation I could have had about this topic? Be honest with yourself, because there's a difference, right? And once you feel that difference, once you feel it, you can't unfeel it. You just be smiling, just be happy with yourself. Hey, be like, 5 years, I've done it. You will tell yourself the truth. All right, guys, next week, episode 3. I'm breaking down the hook that makes people binge your entire series instead of listening or watching one episode and bouncing. Because getting someone to press play once is hard enough. Getting them to come back for episode 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Bruh, that's a completely different skill. That's hero mode. And that's where most podcasts die, but yours wouldn't. Everyone says this. Probably add it just for metrics. Drop a comment. Tell me, what's that one thing that you're going to change about your format based on everything I've just said? Just one thing. I actually read these. I want to know what you're experimenting with. And I'll catch you on the next one.